So let's continue where we left off. So I'm going to add the other tree now, and the image size for that is 199 by 817. So let's quickly make a plane. NURBS plane. Let's go to the option 1.99 and 8.17. And let's, again, like I said, I keep forgetting. So 8.17, there you go. So let's go back over here and let's create. Same thing again. If this is too big, I can always scale it down. Again, I'm going to go to the perspective, right click, assign new material on this, Lambert. Just call this tree ride. And let's go to the color channel. And let's go again to a PSD texture. Let's go to the folder icon. It goes to our source images where everything's at. Let's say open. There you go. Alpha to use is transparency. Same thing like before. So we have this tree right now, and again, if this one's too big, we can pretty much scale this one down as well. So let's come down over here and let's watch it through our camera right now. And again, at this time, if it's too small, then you can scale it up. So what I did in the rest of the cases was there were some clouds in the background and some simple elements over here. The grass was painted with Paint Effects, and I'll show you that in a second, but right now let's just do one of the clouds. So to bring one of the clouds, again, I have and there's the cow right there, by the way. So the clouds was really simple, 298 by 167. Actually, let's do the cow. The clouds is pretty much the same thing. The cow's kind of funny, so let's do 300 by 434, and that's a TIFF file. It's not a PSD, so let's see how that works. So 300 by 434, let's remember that. So 3.0 and 4.34. Let's say create. So there's our cow, huge. And what I'm going to do for that is, again, go to the perspective view, get the cow in first, right click, assign new material. Let's do a Lambert, call this one cow, and then simply go to the color channel, and instead of PSD this time, I'm just going to say file. And this is a TIFF file with an alpha, so you'll see in a second what Maya does. So if I go to cow right now, .tiff, and if I go back, you can see that it's also added in transparency automatically, so which is great. So there's our cow, which is pretty huge at this point. So let's scale it down and bring it over here. So it's right nicely sitting on the ground. And then there was pretty much, if I go to my camera view, there were some other elements in here which were pretty much these guys. And what I did was, like these right here, these were again PSD objects, so the same concept, you'll follow the exact same things that we've been doing, 788 by 576. What I did is I also did a copy of this and I flipped it in my package of choice, which was Photoshop. So I simply just went to transform and I pretty much just flipped it horizontally. So that's all I did so that I can show something else. So if I bring my Maya in here right now, the other one, you can see that there's that right there, and there's another one in the background right there, so the flipped version. And pretty much these trees were copied, like this one was done, and then I had this one first, and then I copied this one over here. This one was copied, maybe scaled down a little bit, and this one was copied and scaled up a little bit. Here's the clouds right here. And one thing I've done in this scene is everything is nicely in layers, as you can see. So spend some time and make sure everything looks right. As far as getting the images on planes, it's really simple, as you saw. And pretty much I had everything over here in layers. So I had the mountains in layers, so I can't, if I don't want to touch them right now, I can just reference them, so that way I don't accidentally move them. So I can reference everything I want. Then I have the ground plane over here. Then I have the clouds, as you can see, on one layer. Then I have the flowers over here, which were the textures pretty much. I have the cow right there. And it looks like the cow and some of the trees are on the same layer, but that's okay, I can remove them. And then I had some of these trees over here, and the grass. And this one was grass, but it's actually these flowers. And let me show you how we did that. And I had two simple lights in the scene. So pretty much if I go to the perspective view on this one, I had one light over here, which is a point light, and I had another light over here, which is again a point light on top. So let's minimize this one, and let's go to our Maya right here. So pretty much for the paint effects, you got to be careful for the paint effects, because they can be really heavy, although there's ways around it. So what I did was I went to, just to give it a nice look, I went to rendering, and I went to paint effects, and I said, first I selected my ground, and I said paint effects, make paintable. So I made the ground paintable, a paintable object. Then I went to paint effects again and went to get brush. So it opens something called a visor, so let me just get that in. And this over here gives you a whole lot of things you can choose from. So I just went to pretty much the grass category right here. Let's go to grasses. And in the grasses, some of them are already animated. So that's the ones I chose, like one of them. So I chose the grass wind wide. So I choose that, and pretty much B and left mouse button will take the size of my brush up and down. So if I just start painting right now, you can see that's the grass right there. Some things you can do in the paint effects, you can go Control A, Attribute Editor. You can have the display quality really low in the view. That way if your machine's not really handling it properly, then you can just take the display quality down so not everything shows up in the view, but they'll still render fine. Draw as mesh, you can turn that off, that way they are not drawn as mesh, as you can see right there. And if I just turn this, right now if I just go here, you can see what draw as mesh will do in a second. So let me just go back, you can see that's as mesh right now. And if I go and select them again, and if I go back to paint effects right there, draw as mesh, you can see that's not drawing as mesh, just simple curves. And then there's a whole bunch of other options. I can increase the global scale and all sorts of other options in terms of changing the color of the paint effects and so on. Now these guys, the grass is wide. Let me go to my time slider over here. These are already animated, as you can see, which is great. So I had a few of them. Then if I go back to my visor, but don't just randomly start painting, because your scene will get really heavy. Because if you go to your outliner quickly, what it does is for every time you do a stroke, it'll do a stroke. And so if I simply start painting, let's say if I just go here, grass wind wide, and if I paint one here, and if I paint one here, paint one here, so technically I've painted 3 of them right now. So got to be careful with that. The other one I chose was, in some of the spots, was pretty much the AstroTurf over here. So I just click on that, and I pretty much had the AstroTurf in some cases right here. So it looks really nice. So if I render this right now, you'll see that's the AstroTurf and that's the other grass. And you can change the shading, you can do all sorts of things. And as far as the flowers around one of those trees over there, I pretty much went to the flowers area, and I chose, in my case, I think they were the lilies. So you can also go to daisies, you have all sorts of things over here. So I can, let's say if we want to go to lily red in this case, I can just go here, and let's go to the perspective view at this time, and go here, and I can just have some lily reds. And again, don't worry how they look over here in the view. When you render them, they look really nice. And as far as the light goes, I pretty much had a simple point light. So I went to create lights, point light. And a point light is pretty much like a light which goes in all 6 directions. So I just moved one of them up, and you can change the intensity and the color over here for the light. And I pretty much copied that guy and had one more right on top, and one of them was down right here. So pretty much that was the scene. So in the next scene, what we'll see is, we'll see how we can set our animation parameters and get some basic animation going.